This video is going to review the plasma membrane, aka the cell membrane. So when we first look at this image, this whole thing is the cell membrane, and it has phospholipids. That's this part. It is made up of a phospholipid bilayer. So there are two layers. It has carbohydrates, which act to identify chemical signals. Cholesterol, which is a type of lipid that repels water but helps keep the membrane fluid, and it also has proteins that help with transport. So I'm going to go through the practice questions for this section. So to start off, hormones are repelled. Repelled means forced away by water, and can be found between the layers of the phospholipids. Remember, phospholipids make up cell membrane. Those are the phospholipids in the plasma or cell membrane. Therefore, hormones are considered. So I know hormones force away water. So I'm going to go through my answer choices and see which one matches forcing away water. Well, I know that nonpolar means repels water. All right, I'm going to just keep going through my answer choices. Harmful and should be avoided. Well, it doesn't say that hormones are bad, and repelling water isn't a bad thing. So, no. Attracted to the polar tails. Polar tails does not exist. There are non-polar tails as part of a phospholipid, but there's no such thing as polar tails. And then polar just means attracts water or mixes with water. So if I look, repels water and force away water, this matches. This is my answer. Number 2, the substance on the plasma or cell membrane that acts as a flag and helps identify chemical signals. Well, identifying chemical signals is a carbohydrate. That is simply the definition of a carbohydrate. On the cell membrane, it identifies chemical signals. So I'm matching my answer to carbohydrate. It is not the cell membrane. It is not a protein. It is not a hormone. It is a carbohydrate. So to review, a hormone we've discovered is simply a type of nonpolar substance. Protein helps transport molecules, and the cell membrane is our whole structure. The carbohydrate is a piece of the cell membrane. Let's keep going. All right, the above image. So I'm going to first figure out what this is. I see proteins. I see carbs. The proteins. I see a phospholipid bilayer. So this tells me that this is a cell membrane. So I need something that matches cell membrane. Cell wall, that does not match. The cell wall is not the same thing as a cell membrane. Nucleus is part of a cell, but it's not in the cell membrane. Non-selectively permeable membrane. I know that a cell membrane is selectively permeable. This is telling me that it's not. This doesn't match. And then the fluid mosaic model. So remember, another way that we describe the cell membrane is it being fluid. So all of these pieces, carbs, proteins, phospholipids, they're all moving all the time. All the molecules are moving throughout the cell membrane. It's not stiff. So we call it the fluid mosaic model, and this does match. All right, which of the following is not a property of a selectively permeable membrane? Well, I know a selectively permeable membrane is simply the cell membrane that controls what enters and exits. So I know what it is, so I'm going to look for what it's not. So fluidity, the ability to let substances enter and exit. Well, yes, this is true. Composed of two layers of lipids? Well, I just identified in the diagram, yes, it has a phospholipid bilayer. I can use this image as my guide. This is true. Rigidity and structure. That is not part of it. Remember, that would be more describing the cell wall. And then the semi-permeability to water, gases, and compounds. Yes, because the cell membrane is semi-permeable. So this is true. So my answer is C. Finally, a phospholipid contains, so a phospholipid, remember, makes up cell membrane. And a phospholipid has a polar head that attracts water and nonpolar tails that repel water. All right, so I'm going to match a phospholipid contains polar heads and nonpolar tails. So nonpolar, polar, this is not a match. Polar head, nonpolar tails, yes. Fatty acid heads, well no, the tails are fatty acids. And a phosphate head, yes, this is a phosphate head. But then the tails are not polar. So these don't match. And F does, that's my answer. And that's our review for the cell membrane.